All right, we touched on the Schwartz comments. McNuggets, if we can, and Steve, let's put those on the screen so people can sort of digest what was said. Schwartz was doing an interview with Mary Kay Cabot. And here's
this
what
is
he had
the lead,
to say.
by the way. This is not what Schwartz said. This was Mary Kay Cabot's lead to her
Oh,
story
I thought you were pulling his
yesterday.
quotes.
I
Okay.
did.
We'll
two
have
quotes.
those too, yeah.
Okay.
But this is the lead because I think it's worth reading. Would you like me to read it?
Yeah,
Jay,
please
do you
go
wanna
ahead.
read it? This was from Mary Kay's column directly. This is the lead of the story. Anthony Schwartz, the Browns' 2021 third-round receiver out of Auburn, spent his entire rookie season incurring the wrath of the Baker Bros and trying to shake the rap as the guy who caused Mayfield's shoulder injury when he stopped on his deep route in Week 2. She says Baker Bros.
I love that Mary Kay is using a term that I created. I actually don't know that I created it, but I probably used it the most often.
Here's my thing, though.
Love it.
I don't think that's true. The wrath of Baker Bros. When I first read this, I thought, wow, I must have been in like a 4 or 6 week coma last year. I missed that storyline.
Think about the intensity.
I don't ever remember anybody trying to vilify Anthony Schwartz for the injury. I don't.
She
The
gets a lot
injury
more
was
correspondence
Baker's
than we
fault.
do, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Like, she gets constantly people
Well,
emailing
she's not
her.
even. She's okay. Yeah, that's true. She's saying that. Yes.
I didn't
Yeah,
hear
no,
it much.
it's her words.
Right.
I don't remember that ever being a dominant storyline where anybody was saying it's Schwartz's fault. If you watch that play, you can argue or not that Schwartz stopped on the route and that led to the interception. That happens all the time in the NFL.
Yeah.
Right.
And that happened, and I think in the body of the article and during the interview, Schwartz even fell on that sword.
Here's
Yeah.
the quote. Do you want to hear it?
Read that quote
All
for
right, let's take it,
context.
Steve. This is Anthony Schwartz. This
Right.
is not Mary Kay. This is Anthony Schwartz. It mainly bothered me because I kind of felt like some people were trying to
This
blame
is not
me
what's
for
up on the
something.
screen.
Yeah,
Right.
you got something else up there.
Steve, go back one. This is no, Schwartz
He
one.
says in this
You
one, that's
skipped
one of the plays from last year I wish I could take back.
Right.
I think he's,
Here we go. We just had him backwards.
he
Here it is.
understands what he did.
It mainly bothered me because I kind of felt like some people were trying to blame me for something when we both did something wrong on that play. I didn't finish the play, and I don't think he made the right read, but we were both wrong, and unfortunately, it ended up
Okay,
like
so
that.
keep that up and let's sort of parse that out a little bit. It mainly bothered me because I kind of, so he's not even like, he's just sort of tepidly in on that, felt like people were trying to blame me for something when we both did something wrong. I just don't remember that ever
There was
being
no
a huge
backlash from the
narrative.
media. Mary Kay's probably talking to when she says the Baker Bros. She's not really, I call some people in the media Baker Bros, but really it's about the fans.
But do you remember that being
I don't remember that. It doesn't mean it didn't happen. It was a while ago. I don't
could
remember.
there have been 2 or 3 fans? Yeah, there were 2 or 3 fans that
remember
burned
people-
LeBron jerseys, and
Yeah.
we all got negatively tattooed as, you burned LeBron's jersey.
True,
No,
that's true.
a couple of idiots did, but
Yeah.
not. So I don't
knew those
remember
idiots,
that
by the
being
way.
this prevalent storyline from last
I don't
year.
remember it being that.
It was Baker's fault 100%, and I don't think anybody has ever argued that.
Here's what that is. It was a rookie comment, right? Have you ever noticed why when you were younger it just seems like school was like 10 years long? One year was like,
Yeah,
oh my
forever.
God, I remember everything. And I always wonder why you got nostalgia and you just felt like everything was so more deep and in depth and you remember it like it was crazy. But as you get older, guess what? The years start to go faster, faster, faster. And so I watched this guy, he's a psychologist, say, you know what? When you're younger and you're 9 years old, 1 year is 1/9 of your life.
Right.
So it's
a lot.
pretty big.
Yeah.
By the time you get to be 41, 1 year is 1/41, 42nd of your life. So when you're Anthony Schwartz and you got 10 receptions, you aren't really in a game like that. Your opportunities when you get in the game, that play is magnified because he didn't play that much.
Right.
It's
Right.
huge to him. He's like,
Yeah.
Everybody else is like, hey, dog, I played 6 years. That's not a big thing.
Yeah, it's
To
one
him-
play, let it go.
To him, it's the biggest thing. That was his season in a nutshell, even though the outside people
But I
aren't
don't
really
like
talking
him.
about
I don't
that.
like him using this fake torrent of criticism on
Yeah.
him for why he had a bad season, because I don't think that's completely truthful. I don't remember anybody saying we got to deal Schwartz because he got our quarterback.
No, we
hurt."
all were down
Baker
on him.
was to blame.
Yes.
Baker, look, interceptions happen. Rodgers throws them. Brady throws them. With the exception of Brett Favre and like Superman type physical specimens that just love to play to contact, quarterbacks pretty much get the drill. You throw the interception, you get the hell out of the way.
Yeah.
And Baker's decision to go after the ball carrier and
Yes.
that was on him. And I think he would tell
Yes.
you that he made a mistake doing that.
Anthony Schwartz. Look, can I talk to Anthony Schwartz? Put the camera on me here for a second. Anthony, you should be proud if people blame you. You have saved the Cleveland Browns franchise. Because of that injury, the Browns now have Deshaun Watson. If Baker had not gotten hurt, he probably would have played decently last year. And the Browns would have settled for the mediocrity that they had and would have stuck with them, and the Browns would be stuck in mediocrity behind 10 teams with significantly better quarterbacks. Instead, they went out, got aggressive, and got Deshaun Watson. And you have saved the day, Anthony Schwartz.
So we're
I
like a
blame
badge
you.
of honor.
But
Yes.
you know where that comes from, him feeling, wronged or whatever, is we're not in his Twitter mentions the way
Right.
that he is. The man's
Right.
got a Twitter account.
Yeah.
I believe I follow him. And if you think that the Baker Bros were gentle on him,
Yeah,
or
they
they said,
probably
let's give him the
ripped him.
benefit of the doubt.
Whatever.
And when
Again,
you're a 20-year-old kid, you magnify
Right.
all the
Right.
meaning of those sorts
We
of
all
things.
do it.
Yeah.
Guys,
Well-
I get hundreds of tweets at me, like especially if I say something controversial on Twitter,
Yeah.
right? And I could get 500 comments from people telling me they love me, you're right, blah, blah, blah. And then you get 5 where people say, you're a D-bag, go die, you fat bastard, whatever they say. And those things will sometimes stick with me. I've kind of
No.
gotten over that, but it used to really
Well,
stick
you're
with me.
a grown man. I can understand Schwartz. He's a young
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
And I think the younger you are, the more you live in this fictitious world.
Right.
Don't do that.
I don't anymore, but
Okay,
it
good.
used to affect me.
Good.
It used to affect me.
And here's the thing. Like, you're right.
Yeah.
We're not in his mentions. Again, where is the positive? How can anybody ever tell me that social media has made me a better football player? I think
Sure.
Andrew Luck's angle on this was the smartest approach I've ever heard by anybody. He doesn't have social media. Mm-hmm. How does that make me a better football player? Everything I do, from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, is centered around the idea that I'm going to become a better football player today than I was yesterday.
Right.
If someone can show me how having a social media account will do that, then I'll sign up.
Right.
But please, Anthony, I'm sure his mentions were probably filled with people who were like, it's
Right.
your fault, bro.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, he's got to be smart enough to understand that unless one of these pieces of criticism goes viral and gets 1,000 likes, it's one dude in his
Right.
mom's basement
No,
who's
it's not
mad that
important.
he's not in your shoes as a wide
Right,
receiver.
right.
So
And-
don't bother with it.
Yeah,
it
and
just drives me nuts.
I know we're bringing
and
in
if I was
Aditi.
a coach, it would drive me nuts.
I know we're bringing in Aditi. One other thing in the article that I wanted to mention real quick as we bring Aditi in was that later it does talk about, and I can't remember now if she brought it up, Mary Kay, or if Anthony Schwartz brought it up himself, basically that Baker wasn't looking for him the rest of the year. That they felt that Baker lost confidence in him. And Schwartz said, hey, listen, I don't blame him. It was partly my fault too.
Right.
But that Baker never really targeted him much. Because in that first game,
Well,
he
that
actually had a
happens
good game.
sometimes, though. But that happens sometimes.
And I
with
want to
quarterbacks.
Ask Aditi about that.
ask Aditi about that compared to what some of the Steelers have done in the past.
Yeah, let's bring Aditi
Yeah, they've
in
had
now.
some social media issues.
And whenever we bring in a guest, they're joined by us through the Gridiron Guys hotline. Looking for a local roofer you can trust. Family owned since 2003, the Gridiron Guys have grown to become Northeast Ohio's top-rated roofers. We exemplify quality work practices and are a valued resource for homeowners and offer a 10-year workmanship warranty. Call 330-753-7967 today for a free estimate or roof inspection.
Grid, Gridiron Guys.
Boom.
Do we need,
That was it.
Do we need like a music bed under
Get a
it?
music bed under
We
it.
do.
To kind of make it
Yep.
even better?
Absolutely.
We'll hit the studio. We'll get that.
Let's go.
We'll crank that out for you.
Let's get it working.
Hey, Aditi, how are you?
Good morning, guys. I know.
morning.
Does Adam do that for every Gridiron Guys guest or only when I come on?
No, it's
All of them.
every
I do it for
single
everyone.
time.
Yeah. It's
A
kind
little more energy when you're on, but I do them for all.
And
All right, good.
Aditi,
Good to hear that.
we over here talking about quarterbacks and relationships, Baker and Schwartz. I remember Ben Roethlisberger having his issues with Antonio Brown. And sometimes, they started off on one foot and then they went to another and he became a star. And Antonio Brown has done interviews that said, Ben Roethlisberger had to go to some of the coordinators and say, hey, Antonio Brown should be playing more because I believe in him. Do you believe that, it's imperative that your quarterback has to believe in you? And sometimes they can lose a little, lose a little faith in you, as in Schwartz not running a route in the beginning as a rookie.
Well, I don't think that there's any question about that. And even before we get to Ben and Antonio, which I think that's a great microcosm or a great example of so many things in a quarterback receiver relationship that can go right and can go wrong. But let's go back to what you were saying about Baker perhaps not trusting Schwartz after he quit on that route or after he perhaps didn't fully complete that route. All of the best quarterbacks that I've ever seen, when something like that happens, they immediately go back to that receiver just to help rebuild that receiver's confidence and to show I have trust and faith in you. And I'll say that that's something that I saw Ben Roethlisberger do, especially in the last 5-6 years of his career. You know, Chase Claypool would drop a ball, Ben would go right back to him. And I still remember about 5 years ago asking him about this. And he's like, what good is the receiver to me if he doesn't have confidence and if I can't trust in him? And what's the quickest way to get that back? The same way that we say a quarterback needs to have a short-term memory, sometimes a receiver does too. And you're just as good as your last play. So give him a chance to have another great play. So I don't love the idea that Schwartz thought he was penalized for the rest of the season and never had the opportunity to go and talk to Baker and say, hey, man, I know I let you down on that one play, but please come back to me and I'll make it worth your while. Or let me have a chance to regain your trust. I think that that's vitally important. As for Ben and Antonio, which direction do we want to go in?
Oh, God.
And it's funny, I'll say this because you know what? I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday. There's a university that is bringing me in to talk to the team's football players about how the media doesn't always have to be a bad guy and how you can use the media and how you can be smarter in the media and to have that whole conversation. And one of the things that actually came up in this conversation I had yesterday is how Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown were the single most magical connection that I have covered in more than a dozen years, 13, 14 years of covering the National Football League. I've never seen two receivers be more on the same page, create more magic, I'll use that word again, than the two of them. And even Roethlisberger said to me once that of all the great receivers that he's played with, Hines Ward and Plexico Burress and Santonio Holmes and Jericho Cotchery and Mike Wallace and Emmanuel Sanders, he said there was just something different with Antonio Brown. It was the way the two of them could improvise together, the way that they could read each other's minds, the way that Ben would throw the ball to Antonio Brown when he was triple teamed and he had no business throwing him the ball. But he knew that somehow Antonio would come down with the ball. The way that Antonio could break off a route and just find an open space and expect that Ben would find him in that open space, even though that wasn't what was prescribed when the play began. All of that went sour. All of that went sour when there was a Denver Broncos game that ended with Ben Roethlisberger throwing an interception in the end zone and then going on the radio and saying he never expected Marquise Pouncey to push a defensive lineman that deep into the end zone, that AB didn't run the route exactly as he wanted him to run the route, and perhaps he should have just thrown the ball to Juju Smith-Schuster. So in Ben's mind, he was being about as honest as he could have been, talking about the way that he viewed the play. In Antonio's mind, he felt you're calling a grown man out on the radio. And after that, they just never saw eye to eye in the same way. And it was a fissure. And again, what was the most amazing relationship? So to go back to where you started this whole conversation, G, how important do I think it is that the quarterback and the receiver get on the same page and get along and build some sort of rapport? I think it's everything. I think it's really, truly everything. I think Jamar Chase is a great receiver, but I think he's better because of the rapport that he has with Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
And I think that he makes
doubt.
Burrow better.
100%. They make each other better, and their chemistry makes them both better. There's no doubt about it. Aditi, another conversation we were having in really the same vein is what skill position player is most negatively affected by Deshaun Watson missing games. Jay had the cop-out answer of everybody, which is true. It is everybody.
But it's fair.
But we're asking for the best. G went with David Njoku. Mike went with Donovan Peoples-Jones. I went with Anthony Schwartz being most negatively affected. We're just throwing the question at you, so it might be a little tricky to nail an answer right away. But who do you think? What was your first thought with who's most negatively affected with Brissett as opposed to Watson?
Well, again, going back to this idea of building chemistry and building reps, David Njoku right now is being paid like he's the number 2 receiving option, right? Like,
Yes.
I think that if you are paid that amount of money, you're expected to come up big in the red zone just in general, you're expected to come up big. And David Njoku has never had a season with anyone where he particularly came up looking like the number 2 reliable security blanket option, red zone threat, whatever you want to say. So he has to build that chemistry with his starting quarterback to essentially justify filling that role. And so that piece, I think, is a little bit hard because it's twofold. It's you need to build that chemistry with a new quarterback, and because you've never done it with any quarterback.
Right.
You know, I think that Amari Cooper, we're all expecting to be the number 1 receiver, and there's a bit that we expect him to be able to work with anyone. However, the offensive line obviously is so good and is so tough that it shouldn't really matter who's back there. I think that they'll be okay. I think that Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt have proven that they can play with whomever, whenever. So, yeah, I think I have to agree. That was G or Mike who said Njoku. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
G. Bush said Njoku.
G said
Yeah,
it.
G, I think I have to go. I think I have to ride with you on that one.
Come back on fire.
I thought
Came
my
back on
answer was
fire.
all inclusive. I thought my answer nailed it, Aditi. But
You didn't like Jay's answer? I love all my kids
except
equally.
When they pin you in a corner and they ask you for one. I mean, what's
Yeah,
the
right.
answer, Jay?
Right.
Yeah,
Get off the
everybody's
fence.
a
Obey
fan.
the exercise.
Aditi, you're right, and I've never taken that big of a cop-out before, but I'm telling you, as I was going through the offense and all the different moving parts and all of the guys, I really said, well, yeah, this player benefits greatly. This player benefits greatly. And at the end of the day, I went across all the skills players, and I'm like, they all need them. We all need them.
Right.
You know, and so I know it's a stupid cop-out answer, but I'm going to stick
It's
to
not,
it.
but you know what, Jay? It also speaks to the leadership of the team, right? Like, how do you lead if you're not the starter? And I think that Deshaun Watson has already come in and in organizing these trips outside of Berea and gathering guys to throw separate of prescribed practice sessions, he's showing that he is ready to take ownership of this team, to take ownership of this offense. But if he's not there for 8 weeks, how does he do that?
Yeah,
if he's not
that's
there
hard.
for 12 weeks, how does he do that? If he's just not there for 2 weeks, then is Jacoby Brissett a placeholder for 2 weeks? Or does Josh Rosen beat out Jacoby Brissett? You know, like, I just think that there's a lot of questions that pertain to the role that Deshaun Watson fills that go even beyond the role that he fills in the offense.
Yeah, and I think that can be said of all the great quarterbacks. Obviously, that they all need to lead. And I think we have seen some really nice leadership traits out of Deshaun Watson so far. Hopefully, we'll be able to see those on the field instead of just, away from the field with the trips and everything that you mentioned. But I just, we so desperately want to see this guy in real meaningful action. Did you see the video of him crossing the street yesterday?
We have that video. I wanted
Did
Aditi
you
to
see
see
that?
it.
We would like your analysis
What
of
the
this.
hell's going on here?
What do
Tell
you
us.
think this says? Tell us what it says about his.
Has she seen it already? Have you seen it?
No.
Or is this the first time? Here we go. There's
There's
Peter.
TJ.
Melinda Adams shot this video. I know Melinda.
Okay, good
That's
job.
Watson
Melinda.
now walking across the street. They couldn't take him in the golf cart, Aditi.
What do you see in there, Aditi? Do you think he's ready for the season?
Well, he's looking both ways. He's not just trusting PJB to look both
Exactly.
ways. Peter
He's
has
wearing a
that
helmet,
too.
too.
Checks his reads.
Yeah. Like,
Yep.
you saw him turn. That's how we teach our kids, right? You make sure before you cross the
Good
street.
soft
Wait a
swivel.
They're not
Aditi.
looking back.
Aditi, wait a second. Wait for it. Here's Tony Grossi trying to take him out.
Now,
Nobody even stops and honks. Nobody
no.
even waves. Do they just not realize what's
How
going on?
embarrassing is that for the Browns?
Now I
Aditi?
do need to say this. He should watch out because technically he didn't cross at a crosswalk.
That's true.
wall, and that could be breaking the league's conduct policy. He might want to chill out. We don't
You know,
want
Jaywalking,
I'm
get
going
you
to
2
admit
games?
right now, since Adam told the whole ham story and copped to the fact that he once ate ham in a grocery store without paying for it,
Yeah.
I have crossed the street exactly there at least, 1,000 times in the last
Right.
10
Me
years.
too.
I have not
Me
used
too.
a crosswalk ever.
Marjorie
So-
Taylor is going to have us arrested. Marjorie Green Taylor is going to have us arrested for being too woke by crossing the street.
But
in the middle of the
Aditi,
street.
have you ever walked that walk in full uniform, helmet on, everything? I don't think you
no.
have.
No. But why is that? I mean, I wonder why why are they doing a photo shoot there?
We can't figure it
I don't know.
out.
I always thought that was some abandoned factory across the street there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, usually that's where I park. You know, I
actually gonna
sat
ask
behind
Melinda
that
what the
building.
hell's
Hugh
going
Jackson once made me cry, and I didn't want anybody to see me cry, and I went and I sat behind that building.
Oh, Hugh Jackson was such a D-bag that day.
Aditi, let's get to the bottom of that. Aditi, what did he do? Did he tell
I
you
was there that
Did
day.
he tell you he was going to come back and coach the next year?
Oh, he dirty.
What did he really say?
Mike, I love it. Let's move on.
Okay,
on
never
from
mind.
No,
that.
that was a brutal
That's a
day.
story for another day. Maybe when DeQuell is sharing his scotch with everybody, we'll
Right.
get into that.
There we go.
Aditi, all right, go ahead, Mike.
That's the most riveting footage that we have of
Jake's
Deshaun
texting
right now.
Hugh Jackson right now. He's like, "You made Aditi cry?"
No,
Really?
I'm not. I'm actually asking Melinda, where the hell? Like, I want more of this story.
Of where he was going.
Where was
What
he
are
going?
they doing that?
Why
building?
the hell didn't they just drive him across the street in the golf cart? How embarrassing
Yeah,
of
but
a
see,
look was
Jay,
that?
I would have had a bigger problem if they'd driven him across the street in the golf cart. Like, it amazes me. You are a professional athlete. You can cross the street.
I know, but
You
he's
know,
in
like, the
football. He's
craziness
in
that you
football
see.
cleats. But he's in football cleats and he's walking on pavement. And as G. Bush accurately pointed out earlier, unless you've done that, it's a bit of an ice skating routine. Those things are slick. The last thing you want to do is have your $240 million quarterback slip on football cleats crossing a
Well,
highway.
that's a little bit weird too. Like, why wouldn't he just wear his flip flops and put his cleats on for
I don't
the?
know. We have so many questions.
We do.
We're gonna
We
get
have all these questions and no answers.
I know.
Jay, if you
Yeah,
could get
but why-
Melinda
you
on,
shouldn't
we'll
ask
take her.
Melinda would
Melinda's
absolutely
the
come
ESPN
on.
Producer, ask PJB what exactly was going on there.
I don't
He
think
won't give us a straight
He's not going
answer.
to tell us. Are you kidding?
I mean,
Well,
this
the
is amazing
organization
that
this
training
time-
camp opened this week, and like this is what we're enraptured by, right?
Yes.
Like,
Facts.
oh my gosh, why was Deshaun Watson crossing the street?
Aditi, what's today's date? And what the hell's
July
going on?
26th.
We've got nothing.
I mean,
We've
what
got
are we
nothing.
supposed to be taken by? The battle at defensive tackle?
The Steelers are reporting today, so there's
So who
that.
cares?
The Steelers are reporting to Latrobe. There is that.
By the
I
way-
am very curious to see how the reps break down for the Browns. With
By the way,
quarterbacks.
Aditi, speaking of the Steelers quarterback, did you see Mike Sando's? Do you know how Mike Sando from The Athletic does he polls 50 NFL executives and coaches for his quarterback
Right.
tiers list? There was no
Okay.
Steeler quarterback in the top 32. Did you see that?
Okay.
Really?
No, not one in the top 32. There's 32 teams. He didn't
So
make.
which team had two?
Sam Darnold was 32.
Oh my
That's so
God!
funny.
And then
so
Mitch Trubisky was 33.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
Now, I'm going to defend the Steelers here. I think Trubisky should be 32 ahead of Sam Darnold.
Wow.
Yeah,
Out on a limb.
that list is almost discounted because Darnold is 32.
32, yeah.
Adi, you almost just asked yourself a question because of us.
He might not even
and I
start.
appreciate that. So
Yeah.
why don't we go ahead and ask you the question that you were trying to set us up for?
Yes.
How do you think the reps will break down for the Browns in training camp, at least to start, before we get any news?
I'm still stuck on the whole Steelers thing. I mean,
Okay, go
I would
back.
take Mitch Trubisky over Kyle Wilson, I think. I mean, I'd take Mitch Trubisky
Trubisky.
over quite a few quarterbacks, quite
I'd take-
frankly.
yeah.
I'd take Mitch Trubisky over Drew Lock. I'd
I
like
would
Mitch
too.
Trubisky over Drew Lock.
I'm with you.
Let me
Really
keep
fishing.
going.
There's at
I mean,
least
it's
5 or
like-
6 quarterbacks I would take him in front. He's a Pro Bowl quarterback once upon a time,
I-
and never had
I
any
mean,
pieces
So was
around
Andy
he's
him.
in
Dalton.
a situation where the offense suits him, where he's having a lot of input in the offense, where his teammates are behind him. I mean, I said this a few weeks ago. You're going to see the difference when a person is treated well. We are all affected by how we are treated. Mitch Trubisky is happy in Pittsburgh right now. He is being treated really well. Don't discount what Kenny Pickett can do. I still think it's a long shot for Kenny Pickett to start the season.
Yeah.
But, I mean, come on now.
Aditi,
I
let me
feel
give you.
like it's so easy to rip on the Steelers. Oh,
Yeah.
we keep doing this. I know Mike is
Oh,
going to cry.
please.
I don't
Everybody
think
in the
Mike
media
cries,
kisses the
especially
Steelers'
because
ass
we
for the
had
last.
that building.
Aditi, everybody's been kissing the Steelers' ass. They sent Benny Roethlisberger out like he was a conquering hero. Everybody's up in arms about Watson. Nobody said boo about Ben when he left town. The Steelers have had their ass kissed for years. It's okay if we in Cleveland take shots at them, so I'm going to do it. But listen,
Okay.
let me give you
Okay.
these. Let me give you these guys. You tell me. I'll give you the guys listed ahead of Trubisky real quick, and you tell me if you put Trubisky ahead of the guy. And I'll be fair too. I'll
Okay,
tell you
but-
mine.
Wait, but really quickly,
Yeah.
are we just saying in a vacuum or in the situation that they're in on the team that they're on?
In benefit to Trubisky, I'll say in the situation of the team they're on.
Okay.
I will go that way.
Well, guys,
All right.
All right, 32 is Darnold. We all agree we'd rather have Trubisky,
yeah.
right?
Yes.
Okay, we're all in agreement there. 31, Mariota. I think I'd put Trubisky ahead of him too. What do you guys say?
Yeah, me too.
Sure. Yep.
Okay, number 30, the great Daniel Jones. What do you say about that?
Oh,
God.
come on. He should be.
Yeah,
How
I
is he above
Trubisky over Daniel
Trubisky?
too.
I would take Trubisky as well. See, I'm not that much of a hater. 28, this is a tricky one because this guy's barely played. 29, Trey Lance. I would
knows?
take Trey Lance, even though
Upside.
Trubisky's better. Trey Lance at least has upside. I know what Trubisky is. He's a serviceable NFL player. I think I know what Trubisky is. I think he's a serviceable NFL player. I think at best he's Jimmy Garoppolo level. I think Trey Lance, who I'm not a total believer in, I think there's higher upside potentially than that. Is that unfair?
Okay, but you're using Jimmy Garoppolo as your example. And by the way, Trey Lance couldn't unseat Jimmy Garoppolo a year ago.
He couldn't. I don't believe in Trey Lance, but I would take the upside over Trubisky, who I feel has no upside. You obviously disagree.
I do think that he has upside.
Okay.
He's
Actually,
done
but
it.
you
He's
know
a
what?
proven
I'll be
commodity.
honest. The reason I think he has upside is because Brian Dable told me that we haven't seen everything that we could see out of him, and that he will impress us this year. And so I trust Brian Dable more than I trust my own eyes there.
So the consensus is to put him ahead of Trey Lance.
If you had to win a game, I'm playing Trubisky.
I'd play Trubisky over Lance right now. Okay, fair. 28, Zach Wilson. I think Zach Wilson sucks, so
Yeah,
I'll give you Trubisky
I
there.
think he's garbage.
We're all in
There's
agreement
Trubisky.
there.
Did I call Zach Wilson Kyle Wilson again early? I'm sorry.
might
if I
have,
did
but
that.
who cares?
Okay, we knew what you were talking about.
Until he's any good
Okay.
at football, you can call him whatever the
More
hell
than
you
he
want.
deserves.
Call, whatever.
What's his
27,
name?
Davis Mills. People in Houston actually think he can play quarterback.
Oh, wow.
He can't. I'd take Trubisky.
I think Trubisky over him too.
Sounds like Bull's getting on the Trubisky train.
Well, I'm getting
right
into
now.
the 20s. That's not really saying
Right.
much.
Shut up.
26,
Where is
Tua.
he from? He's from Mentor, Ohio, right? Don't you have to have
Mentor,
someone
yeah.
from
Mentor
Ohio?
Cardinals. 26, Tua.
Boom.
It's a push.
No.
I think Tua stinks.
I would
personally, but I think Trubisky's not very good. I think it's a wash.
I think it's a push.
I'll give Trubisky's from here. I'll put him ahead of Tua.
There you go.
Man, I just think you guys are so downplaying Trubisky. I really do.
Then why did nobody want him to start last year if he's that
He
good?
had trash around him in Chicago. When he went to Buffalo,
If that was the excuse, then why did nobody want him to be a starter last
look,
year?
I get that.
Yeah.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Aditi, I think Mitch had other opportunities. I think it was smart for him to go to Buffalo and sit there and learn under a really good offensive
I don't
coordinator.
think we're killing him.
It was
He's
a
better-
one-year
I don't think we're
deal.
killing him. We're putting him
We
ahead
put
of
him
some of
ahead
these
of all these
guys.
people.
I know, but I just think he's done so much more. What has Tua done in the league? What has he done?
But I said I put him ahead of Tua.
Yes, but I think someone said it was a push. Did you say it was a push?
It was
a push. I did say push.
So
But
if
if
you're
he had that
starting
one
a
with him.
franchise right now and you can take Tua or you can take Mitch,
I don't want either of them.
I
But
don't
but if
either,
I
but
had to choose, I would guess
this
I'd
is
take
your
Mitch.
fake conversation,
It is.
not mine.
I know. Sorry. 25, Justin Fields. I'd take
Justin
Justin
I'm
Fields.
taking Justin Fields.
I'll take Justin Fields.
Has a lot of potential. And I think with some good coaching and some good work.
Yeah.
I'd take
All right,
Tua.
we're getting into-
Yes.
The next couple of guys are Trevor Lawrence and Jameis Winston. I think those guys are both better. Jared Goff, I think they're all better. Maybe not Jared Goff. although he
Jared
was
Goff is kind of.
I mean, yeah, if you're going to make excuses for Trubisky's situation, Jared Goff last year was on a terrible offense. Although I like DeAndre Swift a lot, so maybe it's not that terrible. Mitch Trubisky's in the
if Jared
mid-20s.
Goff
There you
is
go.
all that, would Sean McVay have moved on from him? I mean, he did go to a Super Bowl with Jared Goff, and he moved on from him. So clearly, but I just think that there are the quarterbacks that elevate everybody else. There are the quarterbacks that lead their teams in every way. There are the Aaron Rodgers and the Tom Bradys, and they make everyone around them better.
Right.
And then there are quarterbacks that can be serviceable, that can be good enough, that don't screw things up for you, that are not a liability, and that you can win with if you have a strong team around them. And I
will
think
say
that.
this. I'm sorry.
Go
So,
ahead.
but
No,
ultimately,
go
there's
ahead.
easily 20 quarterbacks better than Trubisky. Fair?
Whatever, but I thought the whole point here was that how is he not even on the list of 32?
Hey,
Yeah.
That
that's
feels-
too.
seems to
That's
be a very
NFL
flawed
executives and coaches saying that, not me. NFL executives and coaches.
Oh,
yeah,
they're-
but there's
well,
also
they're
in
clearly all
that list
geniuses.
NFL
Well, they're all
executives
cowards.
ripping Lamar Jackson, which happens every which way. And I mean,
Right.
enough.
Good point.
Enough.
Lamar Jackson.
So,
What?
okay, are we going back to Jacoby Brissett and
No, I got to go
Deshaun
back
Watson?
to Lamar Jackson because this
Okay,
idea
go
that
ahead.
Lamar I'm bothered by this because I love Lamar Jackson and I think he's a very good player. But this idea in the media that some people have that Lamar Jackson should never be criticized is absurd. That every time he's criticized, people are killing him. I don't think that's fair.
Well, that's not it. I think it's this idea that at any other position, somebody can redefine the way the position is played. Troy Polamalu did not play safety like everybody else. Ryan Shazier did not play middle linebacker like everybody else. Those were seen as assets. You are playing a position, but you are not playing the position the same exact way that everybody else has ever played it. It just feels like at the position of quarterback, for Lamar Jackson, you can help your team win. You can guide your team to win. You can put points on the board, which is ultimately the point, winning and scoring points. But because Lamar Jackson doesn't do it like everybody else does it, it's open season on Lamar Jackson.
But why?
That he can't be good at the position. Just because he doesn't play like Aaron Rodgers doesn't mean he can't be a good quarterback. He's just a different quarterback.
I've heard a lot of people say, I've heard Ryan Clark say a lot of the same things you're saying, but I don't see anybody killing him. Even on this list of NFL executives and coaches, he comes at number 10. That's pretty high. I mean, who are we putting him over? 9 is Deshaun Watson. 8 is Russell Wilson. 7 is Matthew Stafford. 6 is Joe Burrow. I'm not taking Lamar Jackson over any of those guys.
I would take him over. I would take Lamar Jackson over Russell Wilson.
What? Russell Wilson's won a Super Bowl. He's been to 2 Super Bowls.
Let me give you this.
Come on now.
When Lamar Jackson is at the top of his game,
And that's the deal.
I love Lamar Jackson.
There's this and this.
I love him. He's helped me win 2 fantasy football championships. He's had 1 year as an elite player. Elite. One. Russell Wilson's had more than that.
I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
If Lamar Jackson is on his game and he's healthy, he's unstoppable. Russell Wilson
In the playoffs, he hasn't been unstoppable.
I'm just saying, Russell Wilson is not unstoppable. Like, there's a lot of quarterbacks that do a lot of things.
The problem with Lamar.
Hey guys, Aditi's got to run.
Sorry, Aditi, I'm sorry. I sidetracked us.
See what you did to us. See
Aditi,
what you
thank
did.
you. We love you.
I do love Lamar.
We're going to talk later, and hopefully I can come in and sit with you next week in
I
studio.
hope
at
so.
some
Make
point.
it a point. Make it a
Yes.
point.
Love
right.
you. See you later.
I think to wrap up the
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson thing, and then we got to move
Yeah.
on. I think the difference between Lamar Jackson is what we were talking about. His ceiling and his floor is separated by too much.
Yeah.
With Russell, you get what you get,
Yeah.
and he's a consistent star. For the last year, we saw Lamar Jackson that we didn't recognize.
Yeah.
And yes, he was hurt, but if we're
even
not going to use
2020,
injury for
he was
excuses,
good, but he wasn't special.
but
the same.
he's still capable of changing and taking
Agreed.
over any game.
Agreed,
And so
but I feel-
some are hypnotized by that.
Yes.
And some can't forget the fact that he can also be bad Lamar.
Yeah.
And the difference between good and bad is
But here's
dramatic.
what bothers me is I feel like because Bill Polian, when he was drafted, made those idiotic statements
Right.
that were stupid and came off as racist.
You think those are still bothering? That people still hear that?
I still feel like there are certain members of the media that you can't criticize Lamar at all because then you're a Bill Polian guy. And that's not fair.
No,
I love Lamar Jackson, but I think he's a tremendous player. And if I'm the Ravens, I would eventually sign him. But I want to see him do it one more year, and there is criticism for his game. He did not play well last year.
I agree,
and
I
he's
think
not,
that's fair.
He's not in the elite category of quarterbacks. He's different. He's almost in his own category. I get what you're saying.
But then you got a guy like Aaron Rodgers who stubs his toe in the playoffs and goes
And he doesn't get
MIA,
criticized enough.
And he gets no criticism.
You're right, and he deserves a lot of
Right.
criticism.
So
I think he deserves to be criticized more. Yes.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, Sir Yacht, if you're a Cleveland sports fan, you know who this cat is. He's in the building, and I have to tell you, he has something with him that is going to take up a very large portion of our set. Why the hell does he have this thing with him? He's going to explain it. There he is, Sir Yacht, right after this break. UCSS coming right back. Stay with us.